live. Excellent.
And very, very tired.
Yes, and a day early.
Yes.
Yeah, so sorry for the irregular schedule, but it's it's a scheduling thing. This week is unusual. So the audio podcast will come out at a regular time, but the live stream is a day early this week.
So these are the early adopter people.
Yes. Right.
Sorry, you get a crappier version of the thing everyone else gets. But we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, definitely. And you can harass us live on stream.
Except we won't see it.
Yeah, right. We'll see it after. We'll cry after. All right. Cool. So, yeah, I think we're
cool.
Good. Yeah. Anything come up this week? You said you read through the sludge rules.
Yes. Yeah. Sludge 28. Yeah, that looks. Lost my train of thought. Interesting. It's kind of one of those indie wargames. You might see, been out of the wargaming scene, might see like a resurgence or something in indie wargaming between like Turn Up 28, Sludge, and Rain in Hell that we got. I'm actually liking, personal preference, I think I'm liking Sludge a little bit better than Turn Up 28, only because body horror stuff is kind of baked into Turn Up 28.
Right.
And I'm like, it's cool, it's a bit... like Sludge 28 is like, there's like gore tokens and stuff. They don't only represent body parts. It's more like general disorder, but that's kind of a bit straighter of a war game. And now that I've seen that you can equip line infantry units with either muskets, crossbows, or essentially hand weapons and pole arms, I'm like, it's not only black powder fantasy, which would have been fine, but I was looking at some of like the demonic minis. I'm like, you could totally do like a melee only Beasts of Chaos kind of thing by picking only melee units and like mounted stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool.
That's cool. And there's casters in Sludge too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't gotten a chance to get through the rules, but I looked at Turn Up 28, and the one thing when they said, because there's coherency in units, so said probably movement trays are good. I'm like, okay, well if we're doing that, then yeah.
But the thing is, you can get around movement trays in both Turn Up 28 and Sludge just by looking on Instagram. Like, go follow those hashtags. People multi-base models.
I saw that. Yeah,
like it's like, here's this 40 millimeter or 50 millimeter
with like
circle
three,
with like 3 or 4 minis on it. So you kind of actually, that's how you're supposed to do it for Sludge. They say it's called a figure, but each figure in a line infantry unit has like 3 or 4 wounds to represent there are 3 or 4 people on it. Right, I suppose you could also model like something big if you're going like that. But I've seen a lot of people do that for Turn Up 28 as well. So it's like movement trays, or let's just multi-base our model so that you can move.
Yeah, if I had another army, we should play Through the Breach, the Malifaux unit based, because it's very similar to that. Cool. And so it's larger, like 40 mil, 50 mil bases with individual units on it, kind of representing wounds, but they're also saying this is also representing, similar to like War Master or whatever. Right. This is like 100. This is actually not just 3 people, but it's more, kind of symbolic. Yeah. But but those rules were very fun and very interesting, but it's not cheap to build a force. I mean, they're interesting minis. They're pre-assembled and kind of a softer plastic. Yeah. But and a lot of flavor. But so this is I'm curious to try this to see if it has some of that same flavor, because I like the look of that too. I like multiple miniatures on the base.
It does look pretty cool.
Yeah, you can do some nice kind of more scenic stuff. And
like we talked last week, both of those are ahistorical black powder.
Yes.
Which there seems to be a delineation piece. Once you hit a certain age, you're like, historical war games all the way. And I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of want to play war games without like the actual historical baggage that went along with it. So ahistorical black powder stuff. Cool. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, and I liked in the rules, just looking at some of the photography, the scenery and things for Sludge looks really fun to build.
Sludge.
Yeah, right. It's just a mess. So very cool.
Cool.
All right. So let me just check in on the chat. Yeah, sorry we caught everybody off guard, but thanks for hanging with us. And,
again, I'm surprised people are even awake. What time zones? And
right.
Stuff. Yeah. Do you people sleep at all? Or maybe you have like night jobs or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, and after the everyone's work got all scrambled after lockdown and everything.
Is that
All
right?
right.
Business as
Oh,
usual.
That's right. Yeah, they refused.
Going to work every day, crowding onto that subway every day. All we got was some hand sanitizer at work.
Right. So I guess you're considered like frontline workers, basically, because you
I wish I
endured
got
the whole
frontline
thing.
hazard pay. That'd be great. I'd have a lot more money from miniatures.
Yeah, right. Nice. All right, let's get started then. Welcome to the Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on the Weekly, workers of Paizo unite.
Right.
Paizo Unionizes. Spire's End, a card-based fantasy. Cool. Tribe 8, Forged in the Dark re-release. And Tabletopy or Tabletop Audio, a couple of options for soundboards for your fantasy sessions. One that I've used before, another one that just came across my feeds. So let's start with probably the biggest news in tabletop. So Paizo is making efforts to unionize, and they're kind of doing it at a time where they have the most power because there's been the most unhappiness.
So is it Paizo is going to unionize? Because the way I've seen everything phrased is the freelancers are unionizing.
Freelancers can't unionize.
Well,
no, it's the employees.
Okay, it's like
yeah.
No, I got that wrong.
Right.
It's Paizo is unionizing.
Right.
And one of the bargaining tools they
kind of have
the freelancers kind of organically just said
did a work stop. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so that was pretty impressive because freelancers are on contracts and those are negotiated per project or whatever the terms are, and they're in danger of breach of contract if they say, okay, I've got a finished manuscript, I know you have a deadline, I'm holding it until you look at your employees demands for organization. So that was pretty admirable, but also very risky, on their part. But I have a feeling, though, maybe a lot of those freelancers know the situation. They know Paizo has very tight schedules. They don't make money unless they release. They got to be releasing these books. And basically, these workers, these freelancers should be full-time employees.
Right. Okay.
The way that the company relies on them, but it's easier for them to not pay them benefits and insurance and everything. So
there is a reason. All of the side tangent. There is a reason. Almost all of the instructors at the place I work at are instructors.
Right.
I'm luckily staff, which means unless I pull a George Costanza move, you're not firing me, right? But that also means I have other expectations and stuff. But there's a reason my company says, okay, you're working a little bit less than full time.
Right.
So kind of the same thing here, probably.
Yeah, and I think it's probably how the economics work because I've heard the profits per book and things for Paizo are really small, and I think it's just because they're trying to be a strong number 2 option, compared to Dungeons and Dragons, but they're probably a distant number 2, especially as far as like employees and budgets of books and things. So. Yeah, the thinner profits. So this kind of pressure too is actually, I mean, this is not like. Transnational trucking or car building or anything. If these employees actually do strike, Paizo could just say, "Okay, that's it. We're done."
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
We are done because we can't have these kind of interruptions. But the same way that like the video game industry is looking to improve the work conditions for people and make employees deal more honestly, not do this like extended crunch time where people are working 12-hour, 16-hour days over weekends, like 7-hour or 7-day work weeks. They're really trying to put some limits on this, and in America you kind of have to do that. There's not the government's not going to step in.
America English doesn't have a word for death from overtime work the way Japan does.
Yeah. So United Paizo Workers, UPW, was created with the help of the Communication Workers of America, the CWA. And so they've been trying to get this going for a while, and the communication workers have also been helping with the video game industry kind of do the same thing. And this comes on the heels of allegations of a lot of pretty bad things at Paizo, managerial impropriety, things, unfair hiring, disciplinary practices, unclean work conditions, sexual harassment, and verbal abuse. So these are all things that have been alleged by mostly former employees. And there's some suspicious firings that happened in their customer service And so, yeah, it's just been a series of things, but
a series of unfortunate or misfortunate events.
Right. But a quote from the organizers are talking about Paizo's workers are underpaid for their labor, required to live in one of the most expensive cities in America, and are subjected to untenable crunch on a regular basis. And so that's just, not really having it's just not worked out. Right. It seems like, they've been doing this long enough that they shouldn't be in this condition. They should just, let's maybe not do full color books. Let's probably not, just kind of step things down to make it a reasonable workload for the people that.
Well, we've had the discussion before, and for me, this is all tied up with the current state of TTRPG economics, for lack of a better term, where I'm totally on the side of the union because people deserve to get paid what they're worth for the work they are doing and be in safe, decent conditions. But I am sure, or I would imagine, part of the reason Paizo kind of continued like they have with putting out the quality of books they have, which is, I guess, pretty high, right, is because I think consumers, TTRPG consumers, have come to expect a certain quality of book at a certain price point, and that's just no longer feasible.
Right.
What with inflation, with the stuff and shipping from the pandemic problem, and all these problems, it kind of feels a bit like a perfect storm of going. Yeah. We really got to readdress what books cost, what people are paid, and all this stuff. So I think it was Paizo just kind of going, let's just keep going. Because if they go, okay, look, we can't really do this, let's scale back to black and white books. What would their fan base say?
Oh, yeah.
I can imagine
people
would toss their fucking toys. Yeah. Right?
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is they're kind of in a position where, they probably can't scale down because they're risking, because there's probably a lot of distant number two kind of publishers. And with, like a big move like Magpie just recently stepping up with this $10 million Kickstarter,
Which there's apparently that's not enough money to raise the prices of the people working on it either. Right?
Yeah, right. So, so we'll see, how this, what exactly is going to be the response. I think there has been an official response, but they're still in kind of negotiations. Right. So, so they're talking about, let me see here. So through their efforts to organize the Paizo workforce, it's already been underway for some time. There have been sudden departures of several longstanding employees back in September, and the subsequent allegations of managerial impropriety by former employees threw into stark relief the imbalance of the employee-employer relationship, came a statement from the UPW. So, they have, this is currently, I think, 141 employees Paizo has. Wow. And so this originally, 30 current Paizo employees have signed this, are on the committee, to organize. So the efforts are going forward. There's a pretty big article in Wired about the situation in the kind of gaming industry overall. And some of the same allegations that we heard from Wizards of the Coast were leveled against Paizo. The token employee hiring, where they just kind of put them in a glass case and didn't pay them as very much. Yeah. Put them in a glass case and then just brought them out when they needed to make videos or take photos to look as diverse as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of always that the meme you see is diverse hiring, and it's all the people are at the bottom, and then the higher up, it's just
Yes. Yeah. So, and the problem kind of with the industry that what they talk about is it's an industry that is described as small, tight-knit, and prone to retaliation. So that makes it difficult to, complain or to actually, because then if you get labeled difficult, you're not going to get another job in the industry if you're a troublemaker. And one of the former employees called it a soul-sucking, draining experience that never stops.
Hey. Also talk about my day job that way.
That's right. Yeah, it's a kind of a common thing. Yeah, so there were so many different isolated incidents that happen. It was kind of a death by 1,000 cuts, another former employee said, of kind of the small things that kept occurring. So, we'll see how this what happens, and if Paizo just continues firing people to kind of scale things down.
Maybe.
Because that was the thing. Didn't we hear when was it Kickstarter that unionized? We were talking about it was either Kickstarter or Patreon. One of the the companies,
I thought it was Kickstarter.
and the people, maybe Kickstarter, and the people that organized the unionization actually were part of the first layoffs.
It was something like that.
Yeah, so we'll see if there'll be kind of retaliation in that same way, where they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys were on that committee, right? Well, yeah, we don't need you anymore."
Yeah, no, like you said in the beginning, like Paizo might just, and I'm not saying this will happen, right? But one of the possibilities is Paizo just kind of folds because they're like, with margins,
can't.
like we can't, and of course a lot of people would lose their job, and like I don't necessarily, not necessarily, that's terrible. I don't want that to happen, right? But I also kind of wonder if, like I said before, TTRPG economy is in the state where it's like maybe that big but distant number 2 has to disappear,
right,
for people to go, oh, we do need to start paying more for these things. I don't have that much faith in humanity, unfortunately. So I don't necessarily think that would happen, but who knows?
Yeah. So we'll see, and they could probably also save a lot of money just by relocating and not being not sharing a city with Microsoft. Having such a expensive. I think that's a lot of technology companies like in the Bay Area and stuff are like running into that. It's like, this is insanely expensive. No one can live anywhere near their work, and so there's a lot of things that they could do to kind of help the situation, but we'll see. I mean, because nobody really wants to step down at this point. And we've had, I guess they've diversified. Like once they released Starfinder and then the second edition of Pathfinder, we had a lot of fun with Starfinder. There was some really good sessions and some good third-party campaigns and stuff that were released. Pathfinder's second edition, not so much. So we did the play test and was like, So it's not distinguishing itself or anything. It's still kind of 3.5, and
gonna get a lot of comments about that.
Yeah. So it's
like lots of things. Pathfinder fans are rabid because Glorion or whatever it is cool.
Yeah, but and so that would be the nightmare would be is if like Glorantha just became like a setting in 5e. That would be the worst possible outcome of all of this. But we'll see what happens and what that could actually mean. But it would be sad if this was like the end times for Paizo, because that was such an interesting thing that happened with fourth edition. Is like it spawned a reaction of like, we're not going with you. Sorry, Wizards of the Coast.
I don't think there were a lot of sorries.
We're staying here. Yeah, right.
You've sugarcoated all those fans' exit.
I guess it wasn't as amicable as that. But so good luck, employees of Paizo. I hope that conditions improve and kind of like communication is improved. But on that kind of scale, it's not textile workers. It's not, so it's a difficult move to make.
No, but I wonder if I'm by no means qualified to talk about economics or business in any sense. But as you said, and as we all know, TTRPGs are a small hobby. Right? Small amount of money compared to textile workers or video games and everything like that. So do you think you kind of have to take the scale of the whole operation into account? Because small company, but we still have the small percentage. But looking at everything together, is it big enough? I phrase that very poorly, but people know what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on this. And I'm sure this is kind of staying at the top of the news recently, so we'll see the outcome. So I'll update on anything we hear. But choosing your own adventure is something that happened very early on in fantasy. And there's an interesting game that I read a really great review of. Cool. They just had a second Kickstarter a couple months ago to kind of expand the idea. So Spire's End is a card-based kind of Gloomhaven type. You're playing characters with abilities and classes and things, and adventuring through. Using just cards and dice, basically running a whole fantasy campaign. Okay, and it was just very striking, really great art, really nice design. And so that's Greg Favro self-published Spire's End in 2019. and it's also a small card box. So compared to like the 17 pounds or whatever of Gloomhaven,
Right.
it's much just much smaller and more economical in its design, and really beautiful art. So it's a black and white art style with kind of spot red coloring. So very striking art. So that was Benjamin Wiseman that did the art for the original game. And so, like I said, they successfully just crowdfunded a second version. So they changed the style a little bit, kind of like.
Oh, so this is an update. This is kind of like version 2.
Right. So there's a second version, which I believe keeps the same mechanics, but it's kind of changing the tone of it. The original tone was a little darker and demonic and things. And Hildegard is so Spires and Hildegard is the sequel that was funded in August of this year. And so it's the next endeavor, and the illustrators for that are Diego Frias and Cy Gardner. And it's a lighter, more muted palette, but a nice fantasy look still. And if it's keeping the same mechanics, it looks very interesting. It has the similar to you're rolling kind of custom dice that show like a pattern of attack or a pattern, like it's a grid, like a 3x3 grid that shows you can attack in front of you, behind you, or next to you, and some really nice simplified mechanics. But it seems to be the system seems to work really well. So so anybody that backed that, that's all of that will be fulfilled beginning of next year, maybe late kind of winter, early spring. And you'll also be able to get, I think they're doing a reprint of the original version as well. So both of those will be available on the store. I'll put a link to Greg Favro's Spire's End website, and you can check those out and pre-order. I think both of them are open for pre-order.
Well, someone who likes compact, small card-based games, I'm going to have to take a look at this.
Yeah, it's really, I was really struck by it, and the review was really inspiring. The way that they we're talking about the mechanics really sounded like it's worth trying out. So so early next year we can try that out, and I'll put a link to that being possible. And another game that came up, and this is actually something that's been around for a while. So Tribes. Yeah. So Tribe 8 is a post-apocalyptic RPG by DreamPod 9, and it was originally published in 1998. So it's been around for a while.
It's ancient.
Yes. So designed, and I'm going to screw this up because it's all French-Canadian names, Phil Bouillet, Josh Mosquera, and Stéphane Brochu. It's a set in the kind of fantasy or post-apocalyptic world of Vimery, in the remains of Quebec. So this is French Canada, and you are exiles from the River of Dreams, and you are now trying to form your own tribe. But your rivals are flesh-eating demons, which harvest humans. So
that seems like it might be a problem.
So a very dark game. And the second edition is a pretty popular seller on DriveThruRPG. So I'll put a link to that. But this latest edition that they just announced is going to use the Forged in the Dark system. And so they're saying that that's going to give more player agency and a narrative focus to the game that it didn't necessarily have before. And they're also planning to release a book or kind of an appendix of a conversion. So you can take all of your old books, all of the old publications, and make it work with the new system.
I still haven't had a chance to read all of Blades in the Dark. It's been sitting on my shelf 5 years now, whatever. But from what I remember about Blades in the Dark, and where this might link with narrative things, right? Like ostensibly the goal of Blades in the Dark is to kind of form your own little gang and to claim territory. And to do that, I remember they have sort of not roadmaps, but they're kind of like roadmaps / just maps of an area. And it's kind of like a flow chart, right? Like as your gang kind of grows in power, you can select different options, and that kind of puts you in confrontation with other people. And it seems like a more structured way to achieve that goal of controlling a territory in a haunted city. So what you said about Tribe, it's like Tribe 8? And if the goal is to establish your own tribe, I don't know if they've done it, but I could see them using sort of that flow chart mechanic of Blades in the Dark as a way to help map out the goals and kind of checkpoints and things you would have to do to achieve that goal of forming your own tribe. Because I think sometimes you do need help to achieve that narrative goal built into the system, rather than saying, like, your goal is to go explore dungeons and fight monsters. Well, you don't really need to map that out, right? That's just you do it. But like, if your goal is to like escape from a certain point and the game kind of ends at that point, well, then maybe again a roadmap of what happens or something to track your progress is needed. So.
Yeah. So I want to take a look definitely at the original version of that. But there's also a quick start playtest expected soon. So I'll put a link to the DreamPod 9's website so you can keep track of that.
Is that going through DreamPod 9?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this new version is going to be done by the same people. And this sounded very interesting too. And I like them trying a new system, and I'm curious how that changes, how that fits, and how that's going to actually change the game. Because the Blades in the Dark system is more kind of heist based too, right? It's more you're doing. So it might be feel more like a campaign, an actual post-apocalyptic like tribal campaign against other
That's what I was wondering.
Things,
like again, I really want to play Blades in the Dark. I want to play anything because it's a pandemic. But like, one of the things that I think is intended to lend itself to the heist nature of Blades in the Dark is a couple of quick tables for the GM and the group to just generate like the score like with like 5 minutes. So you just show up and instead of having to plan, it's like, here's what you're doing, here's the target, here's what you're doing, here's where we are, blah, blah, blah. And you don't have to fill in the back stuff of planning. Facilitating that is, I forget what they call it, but there's some kind of meta currency where you can spend that currency to say, we planned for this.
Oh, nice.
Or because we're thieves, and because we did plan, that was just all off camera, I knew to bring this, or I knew to bribe this person.
Yeah.
We'd never played it, but one of the older Cortex games was Leverage, which I really liked, and had a similar mechanic where, like the Leverage TV show, they always do the quick flashback of, because we're professionals, we planned for this thing to happen, right? And they replicated that really well in the game by, again, having a meta currency where you could say, like, spend a couple points of something to say, I knew to bring this. And I think that really helps speed along heist games where, I mean, what was the complaint of early Shadowrun? Like, 3 sessions planning this thing out, which kind of can be fun sometimes, I guess, like the legwork session of the Sprawl is kind of a bit more compartmentalized and stripped down, kind of like, okay, let's do a little scouting and then use that information later on. So as far as it goes for Tribe 8, maybe you might be sent on kind of like missions or like little scenarios with the goal of, we need this thing to better help set up our little tribe, and you can just quickly generate what it is you're doing and just jump right into the action and then say, but because we knew we were doing this, spend that meta currency. So maybe they can work it as a heist, or maybe they'll change stuff mechanically.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea, that kind of pushing your luck, the balancing that resource of, well, we're going to make this easier, but we're going to have less time to do it, or the risk is going to be so much more, the threat is much higher.
Or maybe it swaps to like GM points or something, right?
Yeah. So, we'll keep an eye out for that playtest. That might be something, worth checking out. I'd like to see what.
Does it have solo mode? Because that's about all I can do right now.
Right. Yeah, hopefully we'll be gaming in person soon enough.
Yeah.
All right. And another thing that I came across that may be useful when we actually have a session of gameplay. Yeah. So there's I think several resources for RPG music and soundboards and things, and even some of the virtual tabletops have things built into them now where there's players and things. But something in a pinch that may be very useful that I came across was Tabletopy. Tabletopy, which is just a web app that you can bring up on your phone or laptop or tablet or whatever. And it is just a soundboard of very standard fantasy, like the background sounds of a tavern, the dripping water of a dungeon, you know, and those things. And then also specifically attack sounds like arrows, the twanging of arrows, and magic
pained
spells.
Grunts. Arrow impact. Yeah.
So it's very basic and. But it helps, you know, that little bit of immersion, and especially if it's just, you know, coming out of your smartphone, it's not intrusive, it's not doesn't disrupt, you know, conversation or kind of back and forth at the table. So that kind of stuff is just fun to have as and you know, they can just keep adding to this, like soundboards. You can always keep expanding. So this is just kind of a first attempt, I think, at things. But and they use some nice, I think, pre-made. Art for a lot of it. I've seen it on some of the virtual tabletops too, but it looks nice and it's very usable. And it's one of those things where you can, you know, kind of turn it on and off. Like one tap is on and when another tap is off, but it'll keep looping until, you know, depending on the types of sounds, it'll keep looping. So yeah, I'll put a link to that, and that's worth checking out. And it's just one of those things to have. It's very low resource, very easy to use. So in a pinch, that's a fun thing to kind of wherever
for
you
me
are.
personally, like I use a soundboard at work now for when I'm teaching online. It's just like applause and all of that.
Oh, right.
But it's just like real quick. But I've wanted to use sound effects and music for game sessions, but then fell down that rabbit hole of finding music to play and giving up trying to anticipate what the players are going to do. Right. So it's like, what do you pull up? Like, are we going to have a fight this time? Where are they going to go? I don't know. Finding appropriate music and something really quick and unobtrusive, like you said, is a lot better than the GM going to have to go, hold on.
Yeah, right.
What background is it going to find, right? So it's just
like a troll, goblin. Oh, wait a minute. I got to get this. There's one here.
Yeah, so just finding or having a little setup of the most generic.
Yeah, real straightforward, basic
things. Just, we're fighting. Sword, clank, clank, clank.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just little things like that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and because it's designed graphically too, you know, there's text labels on everything, but you basically look, that's a fireball, that's a, you know, that's a tanker, there's the tavern sound. So you don't have to be like, you know, scrolling through and reading stuff. It's all basically on one screen. Each part of it is on a single screen, like on your smartphone or whatever. Cool. So that works well. But if you really want to get into it, the premiere, I would say, and I use this for the Alien campaign, and they, you know, they don't have it's not like officially licensed, but they have thematic for just about everything. You know, Star Wars, Alien, like anything.
So the entry is like skull, alien, screech.
Right. So they give you everything you're going to need with sound, you know, sound-alike sound effects and atmospheric stuff. Cool. So it's not, you know, taken from movies. So you could actually, which means in your live streams, you can play this, right? Because it's all owned by them. So what I'm talking about is Tabletop Audio. So this is a website that I used with the Alien RPG when we did that early quick start. That early cinematic campaign. And I really wanted to do just a video walking you through the site to show you how much, because it's got such a huge catalog of different themes and different types of audio, plus soundboards that you can build yourself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, you can kind of pick and choose through things. So even if there's something in fantasy, it's like, actually, that sounds like what I want this to sound like in our sci-fi campaign. You can build a custom board from anywhere. Cool. And kind of put it all together, and you know, save it. You know, log in and save it, so you can keep coming back to it in sessions. So really usable and a huge amount of stuff. So advertising free to use. So it's user supported. So there's a Patreon.
Cool.
That supports it. So ambient game sound on the web. So it's a, you know, based through a website that you can use. So nominated for 3 Ennies, and it won 3, or nominated for many Ennies and won 3. Yeah. And
it's more impressive than nominated for 3.
Yeah, right. So it was originally developed for resources for players and GMs, but they've realized that many other types of people have been using it: board gamers, writers, coders, artists, you know, graphic designers, because some of the tracks and things are so atmospheric and so nice to use that people are just using them for audio spaces for various various other uses. So 250 10-minute situational audio files called ambiences. So it's over 24 hours of audio that you can.
I wonder if you can set them up as ASMR things. Fall asleep to low sun. There's like, you have dreams about like fucking Nostromo when you wake up. Yeah.
Yes, and their customized soundboards are called sound pads, so you can make custom sound pads for everything. And so there's a Patreon as well. So I'll put a link to Tabletop Audio as well. And I think they have, I'm not sure if it's Roll20 or Foundry. They have direct implementation with one of the virtual tabletops as well. So they made a deal with one of those companies.
That's smart.
Yeah, to be completely in there. And so, it's great to be able to have access to that whole library.
Instead of having to play it through the microphone on
right. Yeah. So it's very useful. And the one virtual tabletop is actually, I did it in Astral. But sound is actually an amazing component in virtual tabletops because already the communication is not great. You have to kind of like, wait, what was that a word
I was talking over you.
So drop out and talking over each other makes things really difficult. And just to be able to throw a sound effect in there, and so but in the attic you hear this, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay. That's the same way that happens in a live session. It kind of immerses you immediately. Like if everyone's got headphones on anyhow, and you're like, whoa. And,
I was suddenly thinking of the spiraling thing from when you had an encounter in Final Fantasy VII. Right. Or at the end,
the screen shatters into fragments, and you are suddenly in combat. Yeah, but I would definitely recommend checking out Tabletop Audio if you really want to get into that. And it's easy enough to use because it is a soundboard that you can still run a game. It's not too distracting.
You don't need two people to run it.
Right, yeah. And I think I had John a few times saying like, okay, we've heard that enough. Like when I let things like loop too long, he's like, okay, we got it. The klaxon is, we got it.
The klaxon was awesome. After a little while, I did kind of be like, okay, can we turn down the klaxon? We got it, yeah. But I mean, actually, that does kind of different topic. That does kind of bleed stuff, right? Because I was thinking like, okay, Alien, stress is important. Like the dread mechanic. Eventually, like, can we shut off that fucking? I can't think, right?
Yes,
For a certain type of player, that would be pretty awesome and immersive, right? For others who just like, no, just.
Oh yeah. And that's another thing you kind of have to agree on tabletop wise. It's like, okay, so if I'm just gonna be blasting things from a guitar amplifier under the table, is that okay for you guys, or do you not want to be startled by like weird audio cues? No, that's.
Should I unplug the fog machine that's in the back? Yeah.
Oh, fog machine! That's a great. Yeah, but those sorts of things. That's all. You kind of got to get consensus because there are people that are much more sensitive to light and sound. That's just like I'm not going to enjoy you growling at me or whatever with your soundboard.
Oh, with the soundboard. All right, that changes it. Yeah.
Or I can try a growl, but it's not going to be as impressive.
I think I tried like one xenomorph screech and I ended up like, nope, not again.
Right.
That was nothing like it. That's embarrassing. Can we cut that part of the? No, damn it. All right. Yeah.
It cannot be unheard. Right. Yeah, so but that's definitely a nice immersive thing. If you've never done it before, or if you've kind of always thought about it, would be nice to have like a library of sounds. And if you are, doing actual play or whatever, not having to worry about copyright strikes and things while you're gaming. Yeah, definitely Tabletop Audio is a thing to try. And as a quick solution, definitely the Tabletopy is nice. So I'll put links to both of those, and you can check those out as a resource to make gaming a little bit more immersive or a little more distracting or annoying or whatever you're trying to do.
Whichever one you're going for, they got you covered. Yeah.
Nice. So that'll do it for this week.
Awesome.
So where can people find you?
Twitter, as always. That's Hivemind, HYVEMYND, where I'm still doing Tabletoptober. I've been real tired the past couple of weeks. Some days have been, I'm counting reading the rule book as progress. But I went back to painting. Still tried the Apothecary White contrast paint, which I'm still not a fan of.
Yeah.
Compared what I was expecting, a bit of a tangent, compared to the other contrast paints, which actually lay down a color and a shade, I was expecting the Apothecary White to actually lay down a white
right
with a shade. No, this might as well be like a gray, like a light gray. Like I was expecting white pigment particles in a colored solution.
Right.
And because I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I spent like 10 minutes shaking.
Yeah,
pot,
and it still
and
doesn't.
it's still
Yeah.
No, I think it's my least favorite one, especially compared to what the others do. Right, the others are great, where you're just like, that's the color, and a different one kind of for the shade. Anyway, so you can see me bitching about that on Twitter, and also talking about STLs.
Oh, right. Nice.
Just looking at all the My Mini Factory and going, wow, those are nice miniatures. Yeah. Nice. And all those indie war games we just talked about at the beginning. I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't need models for those. All right.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to be doing some printing. Definitely.
Yeah, my goodness. You are going to be doing some printing. I have no part in that other than supplying you with resin and models. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Nice. I saw Army Painter is actually releasing. I'm not sure if it's in full release or people are just getting preview versions of it, but Army Painter is releasing their kind of version of contrast paints. I forget what they call, like
speed paint or
speed
something
paint.
like
Thank
that?
you.
Yeah.
Speed paint. Yeah. So it's going to, I think, work a little bit differently, but it's actually going to give you maybe different options.
Yeah.
They may have a better, because I think another complaint was the black Templar black is just charcoal gray. It's not even So you're not getting you're not getting quite enough range, because you can't use that same kind of maybe mechanism of the pigment separating to do black with highlight. Yeah, it's just it's not gonna.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But you're not. It just won't work. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Black is a hard color to paint anyway.
Yeah. But contrast paints, they're ridiculously expensive, but a few of those colors are amazing. As a tool, as a sometimes tool, I think they can help with a lot of things.
Sometimes tool.
Yeah.
Everything.
Contrast.
Yeah.
And they've really got you too, because you're using much more paint than you're not diluting it, and you're using a lot more paint than you were using before.
Which I guess they come in the bigger bottles compared to like the base. So yeah, I will be very interested in seeing Army Painter's alternative, and hopefully they're priced competitively, because GW stuff is not cheap.
Yeah, they did mention a price point, but Army Painter is always like less than half of Citadel. So we'll look forward to that.
Cool. How about you?
Oh, so I do a single panel gag cartoon that I draw every week and live stream it. So that's Abuse Cartoons on both Twitch and YouTube, and then abusecartoons.com is the website. If you want to read this cartoon and find out if you'd even want to see somebody draw something like that, it's gocomics.com/domestic abuse. And if you'd like to support this website and become a weakling like the grand Orcus Dorcas, you can join us at patreon.com/upturntable. So we've got a lot of options there. And for as little as $1, both on Patreon and YouTube, as a YouTube member, click that little join button, you can get access to the audio fiction for Mutant Chronicles that I've been doing. Nice. So we have an hour now of the stories from Warzone and some of the compendiums, all the fiction that was kind of interspersed in there for the setting.
Oh, cool.
So so the Tribes of Old Earth, there's Sebastian Crenshaw, and I just did a Dark Legion version. So
is it only undead growling?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I used a lot of voice alteration to sound as Dark Legion as possible. But so those are full cinematic music and sound effects, and just the fiction that they use to kind of intersperse and give you flavor in the Warzone books. So if you miss those, or only have access to the PDFs of those, that's a fun way to show players, or just to immerse yourself into kind of the dynamics of that universe. And if you're tired of Games Workshop failing to release new episodes on Warhammer Plus, come to us for regular weekly releases.
So Upturn Table Plus when?
Yeah, right. We're working on that app right now. Too. But that's been a big frustration, is now they're doing shows discussing the animation that they're not posting on their website. Like the thing that Netflix does, where there's like a panel of discussing, wasn't this interesting?
Or just like regular Japanese TV.
Yeah, right.
Which I'm no longer watching.
People just sitting around talking about things. Yeah.
Watch me eat this food, right? And then I'm going to talk about how delicious it is with everyone else who ate it. Don't you wish you were eating this food and discussing it with us? Yeah. Osaka. No, right. I think a little bit of a complaint. Hey, because that's what I do. I think GW has moved all their painting videos to Warhammer Plus.
Right.
Because they had a really great, the website to navigate the paint is fantastic, because when you clicked on the color, it went, hey, here's all the kind of variations you can get with this color, whether you went like a kind of layer or a contrast, and it showed you all the paints you needed. And my God, like $30 to sometimes do this.
Right.
It's expensive, but they showed you kind of step by step. Clicked on the link to say, here's how to use it. I went to like Warhammer Plus, and I'm like,
oh, no way.
So that's a bit of annoying. Where I'm not signing up for Warhammer Plus.
That's going to hurt the hobby. Definitely,
it's going to hurt.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, because that was the weird thing to kind of bolster the content they were offering. They took all the free how to play videos, all the free like cinematic trailers and stuff, and they put them behind Warhammer Plus. It's like we were able to just watch all this stuff for free, and the animators, we were able to watch the output of those animators for free, not regularly posted, but every month or so there would be new stuff. And now you put it behind a paywall, and you can't even give us a decent schedule and supply.
Well, plus, I'm sure you gotta want to have a continuous influx of new players.
Yeah,
where are they gonna go to see that?
I don't know. I mean, it's really, and it's going to. I think they're really shooting themselves in the foot, because that was the presence of Warhammer on YouTube was building so much that you had trouble finding other games, Infinity or the Kings of War or whatever, under this just massive it
was the
support.
D&D of Warhammer games.
And if you're going to start taking that, or give no incentive for people to make content for you for free, then why? Just for your $5 a month or whatever you're getting. Yikes. Anyway, well, that'll be a separate show.
Yeah, okay.
What we don't like about Games Workshop.
Yeah. Everything.
Oh my God. All right. So thank you for joining us. We'll do this again next week.
Later, mortals.
Goodbye.
Sorry, I didn't mean to turn that into a GW.
Oh, no. I thought of that. Yeah, but I saw a thing about the Army Painter speed paints. I'm like, oh, that's good. There's going to be some competition. Nice. Yeah, and it looks like they're similar. The shades may not match. I think Army Painter did that for a while, where they would have
didn't they put out something where it's like, they try to match it exactly?
Yeah, try to match ultramarine blue and stuff, like the McCragg blue. Exactly. So you could just say, I want to use this Space Knight blue or whatever, and so you could. The pigments were pretty well matched for much less a price. So we'll see what they do with contrast.
I do want to see, because I do like contrast paints, because as someone who's like painting, I'm like, I used to be able to do gangbuster shit, and now I'm just like old, my eyes don't work, my hands shake, and I'm just like, I'm just happy if I get paint in the right place, right?
Right.
Contrast paints, I'm like, this looks pretty decent for contrast paint. I think that's why I was so disappointed with the white, where like on the bottle it looked like a gray pigment or gray solution with white pigment, and I thought, cool. And based on that picture you said,
right,
it looks like
white. If you use the Corax white base, you it gets out of the way enough so you get some white through. Yeah. Oh, so Matt in the chat said, what is more fun, GW drama or Gygax drama for the podcast?
Maybe GW. Personally, more fun. Maybe GW drama.
Yeah,
because Gygax drama to me kind of feels like.
Yeah, it feels we're definitely punching up with GW. Gygax, the what's remaining of kind of that legacy. You don't want to kick that's too hard.
That's a good way to put it. GW kind of feels like punching up, where Gygax is kind of like, hasn't this poor old man had enough?
Right. And his descendants, that's crazy.
Cool.
Nice. Oh, Unknown Girl, nice to see you in the chat. And K5, thank you for being there. Very cool.
All right, I got to bounce.
Yes.
But get back to work on my exciting audio assembly life now.
All right.
Cool. Bye, guys.
All right.
See ya.
Yeah. See you next week. And thanks for doing this a day early. I appreciate that.
No problem at all. Yes, the Frostgrave board is still set up.
Yes.
Chanter, who got off about 3 fucking spells and just got murked by that goddamn wizard's eye.
Right. Oh yeah, that's a bad combination. Yeah, you're lucky that I can't take Bone Dart, because Bone Dart and Wizard's Eye would be brutal. Yeah, my new favorite.
Yeah, you don't even need it anymore. What's that? Crossbow bolt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, but like high rolls in Frostgrave, the way it works, you just subtract armor from that roll. It's brutal. Like,
yeah.
With a 20. Well, I guess I'm dead.
Yeah.
10 armor.
Cool. Yeah, some big shots. Okay. Yep. See you next week. All right. Great. Hey, nice. Yeah. So sorry for the schedule change, but good to see you guys in the chat. Nice. But yeah, hope everyone is having a good evening. So good. Yeah, Matt, nice to see you. And yeah, thank you so much for the for your suggestions. Definitely, we're going to be doing more Frostgrave, so a kind of how to play tutorial I think would be useful for Frostgrave, so you could at least have some idea like what we're doing, because we didn't walk through anything like when we're playing the game and doing the rounds and stuff. We're not walking through anything about why we're doing it or how the rules work. And actually, we're not showing. That's the other thing. I'd like to figure out a situation when we're doing the kind of, because it's not really a battle report. It's actually like an actual play. So we're not showing our rolls. We're saying, the results, but we don't have like a camera on the dice we're rolling. So it's a little difficult maybe to follow exactly what's going on. But nice. Yeah. So Bone Dart is the spell. It was nerfed a bit in this second edition. So we're playing second edition Frostgrave. Our original campaign was first edition, and my Necromancer was using this Bone Dart spell, and it just had unlimited range, line of sight, and you basically take a splinter of bone and just cast it as a projectile, and it hits almost every time. It had a really low cast requirement, so the number to successfully cast was really easy, unlimited range, so I could just shoot all the way across the board and just kind of pick people off. So it was just like having a machine gun of like bone bullets. And as you leveled your magic user, you can lower the casting, the target number for that casting of the spell. So it got to be almost an auto cast for me. So yeah, that was a pretty hated spell. So in this recent edition, they've limited the range to I think 12 or 14 inches. So you can't just do and if you noticed in the game, that's why there's so much line of sight blocking terrain, because so many of the spells are just line of sight spells. So you need to have a kind of a busy board that blocks as much as possible, so you have things to hide behind, and so you can't just, it's not just going to be a battle of these long distance ranges. But yeah, Bone Dart, of course, that just became the thing we said over and over again, because that's of course what I was going to cast every single round, because it was the most powerful spell. So I could just kind of pick off, kind of snipe at all the other players. So yeah, so Bone Dart has now been nerfed, and I'm playing a different type of caster, so I don't have access to that spell, so we don't have to see that anymore. But yeah, for this, if you watch that the last actual play, Grenade is the new my new standard, because you can cast it at a point, not at a target, but just at a point, and then you've got an 1.5 inch kind of, or I guess it would be a 3-inch radius area of effect, and so you can hit multiple targets now. So it's harder to cast, but it's much worse in damage. Yeah, that's the new hated spell, is Grenade. Nice. Oh, Mordheim, yeah. So definitely, yeah, it's very similar. I think Frostgrave is inspired by Mordheim, because Games Workshop, when they re-released the Necromunda, they reminded people of how much they loved those skirmish games, and they didn't, because it's Age of Sigmar now, they didn't really do a re-release of Mordheim, and probably we're never going to get that, because they have Warcry now, and they have their hex-based stuff, and so there's little incentive, and especially because the old world is dead, there's little incentive for them to go back and do that. But yeah, I think that's the itch that Frostgrave, when it was originally released, scratched, because you're going into an old city and you're fighting over a limited resource. So the treasure tokens in Frostgrave are kind of like the weird stone in Mordheim. That's where you level up. That's where you get your items. That's where you get your powers from. So there's just not it's fleshed out a little bit, but there's just not the interesting kind of old world, Warhammer fantasy, different factions and things, because they did Amazons, and they did the Sisters of Sigmar. There were so many interesting factions in Mordheim, and the undead and everything, the dwarf treasure hunters. I've got a lot of the old metal minis from Mordheim. So that would be a thing. And that was the first, when I was in Japan, that was the first thing that I actually played is old metal miniatures Warhammer. That was the first skirmish game that I played. So then when we saw Frostgrave was out, that's when the group started getting excited about that. And because it was miniatures agnostic, there wasn't a big investment. And so our first campaign, I think we talked about this a little bit, and I'll show that when I do the how to play. Because of you can use any miniatures you want for Frostgrave, we started with the Lego minifigures. So I'll show you my my warband of Lego minifigures, and there was enough like fantasy parts and like third-party people doing things that worked for staves and wizards' beards and stuff. So we were able to kind of deck out our our Lego minis. So the scale of the foam scenery that I did, the kind of cut foam scenery I did for Frostgrave, is a little too big. It's Lego mini scale, so it's not kind of the 28 millimeter scale, but it still works. It's not too much bigger. But yeah, I'll show you what those the Lego minis look like. So you had a little bit more sense of humor. So that's why Bone Dart became funny, because it was Lego minis throwing enchanted bone fragments at each other. Hey, Lil Will, how's it going? Oh, Witch Hunters. Yeah, nice. Yeah, there's some great factions for Mordheim. I like the PC game for Mordheim is nice. You can kind of scratch that itch of the setting and everything. But I just don't think they're going to bring it back. They're pushing their legally defendable names of Age of Sigmar a little bit too hard for that to be possible. But but it's still, there's people, especially with 3D printing and everything. I just supported a Kickstarter that basically did the STL files, the 3D models of a Mordheim city. So it was all these old, just exactly that old world Warhammer Fantasy era buildings, so the kind of crumbling peaked roofs and everything. I can build a Mordheim board now with some really nice looking 3D printed buildings. So that may be a thing that'll happen. And also I want to do some kind of role play. I think so I'm running the Enemy Within using the Warlock rule set. So I'm thinking also of playing around with, kind of following some of the design cues and things from Enemy Within, and coming up with Mordheim based. It's be much maybe less of a story, but a little bit of kind of dungeon crawling through the city of Mordheim using the simplified Warlock rule set. So I'll keep making notes and keeping up with all of that. Cool. Yeah, good to see you, Little Will, in the chat. Nice. This is the gaming channel and the thing we do. So this is a day earlier than we usually do it. Yeah, even I think Chris posted on Twitter about doing Lego minis for that first campaign, and the creator Joseph McCullough retweeted us and gave us a little reply to Lego minis were a good idea. And that's the cool thing about it being miniature agnostic. You can literally just use tokens, like little flat 2D tokens, and play that game, because you're just measuring from base to base anyhow. So you can do it as cheap as possible and still be able to enjoy that rule set. So all you do is buy the rules, and you can play that game with any sort of paper towel rolls or whatever, the simplest of materials, which is very cool, and that it kind of reinforces that DIY aspect to the hobby, which is really fun. But so I'll get some photos or some video of the old the old Lego Warband out so you can see. But it turns out, though, I mean, Lego is so expensive. It's not an economic route. It's fun, and you can customize it, very easily. But it's not cheap. The kind of blind bag minifigure series that they were doing, like they would have some fantasy characters and stuff in there that would be useful, but those things are not cheap. And especially in Japan, maybe the price of Lego is a little bit inflated, so we didn't save money playing with Lego, but it sure did look funny. It was really because you can pose them, so when you're trying to run off the board with the treasure, you can actually put the treasure in the character's hand and put him in a running pose. So it's a little bit more humorous and thematic. Probably would make better battle reports because you can actually move stuff around. Nice. Yeah, Legos are charming but not cheap at all. And especially when you're trying to get specific pieces. I am so amazed. There was a kind of a giant robot kind of mech combat game that Chris and I were playing for a little while that encouraged you to build this certain scale of Lego robots. And there's a whole kind of huge following for that game. I'm blanking on the name of the game. But once you got into that and we're trying to find, like, source individual Lego pieces, things got really expensive really fast. But that game is pretty... we got to give that some love, too, because I think they just did a new edition of that and some kind of starship battles for that game as well. So you can have, like, things happening in orbit around the planet and then, like, robots battling on the planet's surface. Kind of those two things can interact. So I'll have to go back and take a look at that. Nice. Oh yeah, that's true too. Yeah, there's that's the thing too. If you are just going to go, plastic with Lego, the 3D printer would handle just about anything. Oh, and I didn't even think of that. There's many kind of builder apps. A couple of the when you're designing and trying to figure out what pieces you need to build certain things in Legos, there's some 3D, almost like CAD apps where they have the actual Lego catalog of pieces in the app itself, and you build, and then it gives you a list of the parts that you used, and so you can source the specific Lego parts. But you could also probably export those models and print an assembled, it wouldn't be in Lego pieces, but you could do printed assembled Lego looking miniatures directly out of stuff like that, because you're basically making 3D models. That would be insane. Nice. Yeah. So I've been firing the printer back up and printing the bigger miniatures now, which is a little bit more temperamental because each of the designers, they're pre-supported. It's kind of some work well and some are hit and miss. And I think I've also got to change my resin. I've been using the soy resin, so the fumes and stuff aren't so bad, but it's much weaker, and so you get supports breaking and things. Print failures a lot more with the cheaper, or it's not cheaper, but it's less caustic, kind of less fumes for the soy, but it's not a great material itself. It's just easier to work with. Nice. But 3D printing is really going to start changing stuff. I mean, right now you can get that smallest Anycubic resin printer for like $99. It's insanely cheap right now to just try out. And my experience with the support for Anycubic has been really decent. I'm not impressed by the quality of their resins. I might need to start shopping around for other brands, but the printers, the kind of quality, the testing and the quality assurance on the printers has been good, and also their customer support. If you have any trouble or any parts not working, they'll just send you another one, if anything is not working well. So that's pretty cool. Nice. Yes. Yeah. I've got the Twilight 2000 metal boxes coming. So I went in as much as possible on Free League's Twilight 2000. So that'll be something we unbox and review as soon as possible. There's already a bunch of people in the kind of OSR group that want to do some alternative World War III gaming. So that'll be fun. So both that and the One Ring, Free League also did the third edition of the One Ring. So that's coming out as well. I mean, we're just kind of waiting for I think finishing production and shipping delays. I think things have been backed up a little bit because everything is backed up. So I think containers are moving and things are on their way. Because I think Twilight 2000 was supposed to be here already, but it may have gotten stuck, in a cargo crate in the Suez Canal or whatever, and they're shipping it, because I think all of that is done from Europe. I think the distribution from that. So we don't get any advantage being in Japan. Sometimes manufacturing in China, they'll send us things directly from the factory a little bit earlier, but with a lot of the European, like Modifius and Free League, we don't get things any earlier because they have to be assembled and they're packaged, I think, in Europe or the UK. But I'm really interested in that. I really enjoy seeing the Martin Grip art. Like, I first really liked his stuff that he did for Alien, the Alien RPG, and now seeing Twilight 2000, his illustrations for Twilight 2000, and then his illustrations for the One Ring, basically the Lord of the Rings, looks great. And they're going to be doing a Blade Runner RPG as well, and there's Martin Grip illustration for that. If you haven't seen his work before, it's kind of digital kind of oil painting. Like it's very I had a good description right in my head, and as soon as I started talking, it fell away. But it looks a lot like the previous illustrations and things that they do for motion pictures. So his style is very cinematic, and but it's also it has a nice rough quality, like a really nice compositions and really nice use of light and rough kind of it looks like brush on canvas, but it's digital illustration as far as I know. It's digital illustration, but it has that nice or roughed in kind of storyboard or previs, more like a film previs work. And he captures the atmosphere so well of all of these different things. It's kind of dark and brooding for the most part, and it works in a way that I wasn't expecting for the One Ring, because the illustrations previously for the One Ring are a lot brighter. The brighter, kind of more standard Tolkien look, like the Mike Lee or any of the illustrators you've seen before. Is it Mike Lee or John Lee? But the brighter kind of stuff, and his is dark and brooding, and I think that works well. Yeah, so good stuff. So yeah, more to come. There's good stuff on the way. It's just taking much longer than usual to get here. But yeah, as soon as we get it, we'll show you guys what's going on and talk about it. And I'm working on the script right now for the how to play for Frostgrave. So we'll have a rundown, and maybe I'll just use the board. I'll just film on the board that we used for specific examples, and show you how that system works, and then you'll have a better idea as the campaign goes on what we're actually doing. But yeah, it's nice. And people fought initially with the first edition with Frostgrave, the D20, kind of the swing of the hits and misses with a D20. Which happens in all 2D20 like D&D games. People complain about, but I think in a skirmish game like this, especially when you're casting spells, I think missing dramatically with a spell and having it damage the caster, I love that. That's very old world Warhammer kind of Winds of Magic stuff, so it's good, almost like a blood magic mechanic. And so that's what worked really well is you can sacrifice life, the life of your caster, HP, to power magic if you fail a spell. And so yeah, it's almost like a blood magic economy when you're healing yourself and then you're using the that life to attack. But yeah, so thanks for watching and being with us a day earlier. And yeah, I'll keep the 3D printing up. And that's another thing I want to start doing is reviewing some of the Patreons that we're supporting for the 3D artists that are releasing STLs. There's some really good stuff out there, and some stuff we'll be using in upcoming games. So we should talk about that and kind of give those people some exposure. So if you're interested at all in models, some of the stuff that we've come across that we're really in love with and we're going to be printing, and they do things like treasure tokens and and scenic bases and stuff. There's so much stuff out there right now, so it's really taking off. I just got to do some experimenting with some better resin so I can get some more consistent results with the printing. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. And hopefully we'll have some more either Games Workshop or Gygax Estate drama coming up next week. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I'll see everyone again. And yeah, good to see you, Matt and K5. Thanks for hopping in the chat. And Lil Will, as always. It's very cool. You're good to see you. And Unknown Girl. Yeah, we're in a closer time zone, so not so difficult to catch. That's great. Very good. Nice. Oh, cool. I didn't see your comment, Matt. Yeah. A GM agonizing over musical choices definitely is breaks the immersion of settings. Yeah, so soundboards and like simplified mechanisms for that is definitely much better than somebody flipping through their MP3 files or whatever to give you something to give you an atmosphere. All right, so take care, everyone, and we'll be back next week doing the same thing. So thanks again, and see you next week. Goodbye.